Hey guys, let's talk about this week's episode of Chicago Fire, and it's a blackout. And it's because a utility pole fell and the wires went all crazy, and half of the city of Chicago has been wiped out. And what I liked about this episode was it sort of showed, what can happen when, most of the city loses power and people start to turn on one another. And of course, we had Firehouse 51. It turned into like a safe haven so that anybody who was affected by the blackout could come there and then they would be able to be fed and they would be able to stay the night. And I really liked that part about it because it showed, again, why. House 51 is so important to the community. And when this happened, because the reason why this happened was a guy got drunk and slammed his car into, I think, a person. And that's why they were called there in the first place. And this episode obviously is going to jump and catapult us into the next episode of Chicago PD. And what happened was when the guy whose brother it was that mowed down one of the girls, her uncle, like a crazy man, came to the fire department and tried to attack him. And of course, Severide stepped in, threw him out like he should have, and then he threatened to kill Severide. And he was all like, "You're a dead man." And it's like, dude, calm down. So this whole episode was sort of, what was going to happen to Severide and who was going to sort of become the casualty of this if Severide wasn't the person who was actually going to be hurt. And ultimately, a guy comes to try to harm Severide, but he is dealt with really quickly, and he's dealt with by Casey. And this, of course, leads us to another injury for Casey, which is ultimately going to lead to more problems for him because he's already having memory issues and he gets knocked down, and of course he's holding his head, and it's just not going to be good for him and Dawson. I'm a little bit worried for that storyline because not only is he forgetting his memory, but he's acting out erratically, and that's going to get a little bit scary. So with this blackout, of course, we're also having looting and craziness happening around the city. And at one point, his name is Clark, one of the firemen, he leaves to go and get more food. And he goes to this grocery store, which, this one old man is in there, and he usually helps out the firehouse from time to time. And when he's there, these guys, these hoods, decide to break in and try to rob his store. And of course, the old man is just trying to protect his store, and he gets stabbed. And then Clark, who was once in the army, he tries to help defend the situation, and he's got a baseball bat, and he knocks one of them out, and then, they go running out the door. But of course, they come back a little bit later with a gun, and there's like five of them, and they're, again, ready to threaten this guy. It's like, dude, like, just go. You know what I mean? It's just unfortunately what happens when situations like this happen, and all of the police are working on other things that are happening in the city, and everyone's vulnerable for being attacked by these goons. And so he goes and Clark tries to defend the store against these guys, and then luckily the Chicago PD show up, and of course this is sort of where we get the link between Chicago Fire and Chicago PD because we see some of the cops come to the rescue in this scene. And this stuff with Severide though is still playing out because even though the guy who came to try to attack him, he was captured and taken down, and they're taking him to custody. The crazy dude who originally had threatened Severide isn't letting this go. And Katie, who is Severide's sister, who's a darling, and she has been dating Otis, has to tell him some bad news in this episode that she is probably going to move to New York to help start up a new restaurant. And in this episode, she decides to tell him that tonight's the night when they're going to get busy for the first time. So she's all excited, and the two of them are so cute as a little couple. And she's all excited, and she's standing out on the corner, and she's like talking to him on the phone. And when she hangs up, these two guys come up and put a hoodie over her head and attack her and throw her into this van. And of course, it's the same guy who threatened Severide. So obviously, this is going to tie into tonight's episode of Chicago PD, and it should lead to a good episode. My one gripe was that last night when I was watching Chicago Fire, in the commercial break, they showed a preview for the next episode of Chicago PD, and Severide's like, "My sister's missing." I'm like, hello, only in the first episode of, I mean, the first commercial break of this episode, and you've already ruined the fact that his sister goes missing by the end of the episode. So I was kind of like, whoever is in the department of running ads for the next episodes of other shows should realize that we're currently watching the episode that's spoiling for this next show. I wasn't very pleased. But that being said, it was still a really good episode. We had Chief Bowden getting a little hot and heavy with his new lady love, which was kind of cute. And of course, we had Shay, helping out with Molly's and her still dealing with her new partner. And everything with the show again is always really good to see because it's good to see the firemen in action. But obviously, this episode was really a tie-in to Chicago PD's episode that's going to air tonight, and I can't wait to see what happens next. And I obviously saw a little bit of googly eyes going on between Severide and the detective from Chicago PD. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that little budding romance. All right, guys, let me know what you thought of this episode, and I'll see you all next week. Okay, bye.